Jimin is seen laughing at the fan meeting, but Jungkook knows. It's the smile that hides the miss. The smile that lies beneath. "Don't move," Jungkook whispered hoarsely, pressing his trembling palm against the slick blood soaking Jimin's sleeve. "There's someone watching us." The cheers of the fan meeting still echoed behind the curtain like a mocking lullaby, a chorus of laughter and light. But here, behind the partition, just 10 feet away from the spotlight, everything was different. The air was sharp with the metallic scent of fear, laced with something fouler, betrayal. Jimin's smile had vanished now. Not the bright, stage-perfect one he wore minutes ago for the cameras and fans, but the small, private one that used to belong only to Jungkook. That smile was gone, replaced by something tight, unreadable. "They know," Jimin murmured, voice like broken glass. "Whoever they are, they know about her." Jungkook flinched, her. Even the word left a bruise. They hadn't spoken of her name in months. Not since the night rain fell in sheets over Seoul, the night Jimin's hands had trembled in Jungkook's grip, stained red from trying too hard to keep something already fatting. Not since they buried a truth too dark for their world of curated perfection. But the past wasn't buried, not anymore. Jungkook's eyes swept the shadowed space, instinct on fire. Somewhere, hidden in the velvet folds of backstage secrecy, was a lens, a watcher. And they had just captured more than Jimin's dazzling laugh. They had seen what lay behind it. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. Earlier that day, the first sign had come in a silver envelope left on Jungkook's dressing table. No stamp, no handwriting, just a Polaroid. Jimin. Laughing. But not today. The photo was old, too old. And in the corner of the frame, half-faded but unmistakable, was her reflection. Unmistakable eyes. Gone for over a year. Still watching. Jungkook hadn't told Jimin, not yet, because part of him feared what Jimin might say, what Jimin might already know. But now, with blood soaking into silk and eyes heavy with truths unspoken, he knew there was no time left for silence. "You smiled too wide out there," Jungkook whispered, trying to stop the shaking in his voice. "Someone wanted me to notice." Jimin nodded once, just once, and it said everything. A secret handshake between ghosts. Behind them, the curtain rippled. A breeze, or something more. They froze. Time dilated, every heartbeat loud enough to crack ribs. Jungkook shifted closer, shielding Jimin, fingers brushing his as he whispered, "What did you do, Taehyung?" Jimin didn't meet his eyes. Instead, he closed his own and said, "I made a promise." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. It was pregnant with grief. Because they both remembered her final words, mouthed in pain under a flickering hospital light. "Promise me, no matter what happens, the truth dies with me." But the truth hadn't died. It had just worn Jimin's smile. And now it was walking among them. In the roar of the crowd, in the flash of the cameras, in the echoing steps that no one else seemed to hear. Jungkook wasn't just protecting Jimin now. He was unraveling him. And Jimin was already starting to come undone. Whispers in the green room. "You think I wanted this?" Jimin hissed, shoving Jungkook's hand off his arm, eyes wild. "You think I planned for her to die?" "You didn't plan it," Jungkook said lowly, "but you're not telling me everything." Silence fell between them like shattered glass. They stood chest to chest in the green room, the fan meeting still buzzing outside the walls like a distant dream. The overhead lights flickered, cheap fluorescent bulbs that did nothing to soften the rage in Jimin's eyes. For a moment, the world outside, the fans, the cameras, the scripted smiles, meant nothing. All that existed was this room, this tension, this fracture between them that had started the night she disappeared. "Tell me the truth, Jimin," Jungkook said, breath sharp. "Because I swear if someone's coming for us." "They're not coming for us," Jimin cut in, voice trembling. "They're coming for me." "Then why am I holding your blood on my hands?" Jimin didn't answer. His jaw clenched, lips pressed into a line, but his eyes, those eyes that millions adored, held panic, regret, and something Jungkook hadn't seen before, guilt. A knock snapped their attention to the door. Not a polite knock, a coded rhythm. Jungkook's spine straightened. Jimin's breath caught. That rhythm, it hadn't been heard in a year. 3 short, 2 long. The way she used to knock. Jungkook moved first, yanking open the door, nothing. Just an empty hallway bathed in sterile lighting. A discarded coffee cup. A crumpled lyric sheet, but no one. No, Jimin breathed. No, that's not, this can't be happening again. You heard it too, Jungkook said. Don't lie. I'm not lying, Jimin snapped, fists shaking. But it doesn't make sense. She's gone. I saw her, Jungkook. I held her hand when she... You said that night she told you something before she died, Jungkook interrupted. Something you never told me. Jimin swallowed hard. Don't make me ask again. He backed away, slowly, like every step physically pained him. There was a key, Jimin said finally, voice barely audible. She gave me a key, said it opened a locker, Station 9, Seoul Central. A locker. She said if anything happened to her, I had to destroy what's inside. Jungkook's breath hitched. You didn't. I couldn't, Jimin admitted. I tried, Jungkook. I went there, but I never opened it. I left it. I was scared. What if it wasn't just about us? What if it ruins everything? You should have told me. She trusted me with it, Jimin said, the venom returning. Maybe because she knew you wouldn't be able to let it go. Jungkook turned away, packing. Everything was spiraling again. The past clawing its way back. Her laugh in the rain. Her scream when the glass shattered. The light in her eyes dimming as they both stood powerless. And now this, photographs, blood, a knock that shouldn't exist. He turned back to Jimin. We go to the station, tonight. No. Tonight, Jimin. I said no, Jimin growled. You don't get to order me around like this isn't my life being ripped apart. You think you're the only one falling apart, Jungkook's voice cracked. You think I sleep at night. You think I don't see her face when the stage lights blind me. I loved her too. Jimin froze. It was the first time either of them had said it. I loved her, Jungkook whispered again, softer now. Maybe not like you did, but I did. And you hid things from me, you still are. Jimin slumped into the couch, burying his face in his hands. She told me something else, he murmured. Something I didn't understand until now. Jungkook leaned in. She said, don't trust the fans. The one who smiles brightest already chose a side. Jungkook blinked. What does that mean? I don't know, Jimin whispered, but I think it's starting. A sharp buzz interrupted them. Jungkook's phone. Unknown number. He answered. Static, then a voice. Soft, familiar, dead. You should have opened the locker, Jimin. Jungkook's hand went limp. The phone fell. Jimin looked up, eyes wide. What did they say? Jungkook shook his head. No, it's impossible. That voice, it was her. Jimin stood, fists clenched. We go now. The air was thick with fear, but something else too, adrenaline, the kind that lives in soldiers and sinners. They grabbed their coats, sunglasses, masks, nothing that could identify them. They didn't speak again until they reached Seoul Central. It was almost midnight. The station was hollow, the echo of footsteps bouncing like memories. The locker number was etched into both their minds, 713, under a flickering light. Jimin hesitated. Jungkook stepped forward, punching in the key. Click. The door creaked open. Inside was a single cassette tape. A label handwritten. Play me. Jungkook picked it up, staring at the ink smudged with time. They found an old player in the staff lost and found bin. It felt wrong, sacred, like they were awakening something that should have stayed buried. The tape clicked into place. Static, then breathing. Then her voice. Hello, Jimin, Jungkook. If you're hearing this, I'm already gone, and the person who killed me is someone you trust. Silence. The sound of a chair scraping. And then, I found out something about the company, about the project they made me join. I wasn't the only one, we were. Bang. A gunshot, a scream. The tape cut. Jimin ripped off the headphones, staring into nothing. His whole body trembled. She recorded her own. No, Jungkook interrupted. She didn't kill herself. She was silenced. Jimin looked at him, something dark and determined blooming in his expression. Then we find out who. Jungkook nodded, every cell in his body burning. And we burn them to the ground. You're telling me you knew she was being watched, and you still let her go alone that night. The van trembled with every bump in the road, but not as much as Jungkook's voice did. His jaw was clenched so tightly it looked like he'd shatter his own teeth. Rain blurred the windshield, the Seoul city lights smeared into streaks of neon and memory. I didn't let her do anything, Jimin snapped from the passenger seat. She didn't ask for permission. She was never the kind of girl who needed it. You of all people should know that. That's not an excuse, Jungkook said, fingers white-knuckled around the steering wheel. She called me that night, left a voicemail, said she was scared. You think I haven't memorized her voice in that damn message? You think I don't hear it in my dreams? Jimin didn't answer. Outside, the rain turned to hail. The city screamed around them, sirens, traffic, the wail of something deeper that had no name. Jungkook swerved into a side alley behind a convenience store, killing the engine. They sat in silence, just breathing. Then Jimin exhaled like he was purging something poisoned. She told me the company was experimenting. Jungkook turned his head slowly. Experimenting. With us. Jungkook let out a bitter laugh. Jesus, Jimin, this again. She wasn't crazy, Jimin snapped. You saw the tape. She said she wasn't the only one. The project they picked trainees years ago, the ones with the highest psychological malleability. That's not a thing. It is, I dug into it, after she died. There were files, hidden, not under the entertainment division. Deep inside the medical research grants they sponsor, I found a project ID. Mnemosiny. Jungkook stared at him. You never said any of this. I didn't know if it was real, if I was going insane, but after the voice on the phone after the tape. His voice cracked. I believe her now. Jungkook's mind raced. Mnemosiny, the Greek goddess of memory. He remembered the late-night training sessions, the fatigue that lasted for weeks, the pills they were told were for stamina, the wires they wore during sleep assessments. They were always told it was part of optimizing performance. But she had asked questions. Too many. You think she found something she wasn't supposed to, Jungkook said. I think she was part of it without knowing. I think we are. Jungkook looked at his own reflection in the rain-speckled window. He didn't look like someone in control of his life. He looked like a product, polished, packaged, sold. How do we prove it? He asked. Jimin reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. She gave me this a week before she died, said to keep it until it was safe. Why now? Because someone just used her voice on a call, Jungkook. Someone still has her data. If they're recreating her. His voice dropped. Then she's not dead, not really. Jungkook took the flash drive, staring at it like it held the weight of the world. What's on it? I don't know, I never plugged it in. I was afraid it was being tracked. Jungkook nodded. Then we don't use our devices. I know someone, Jimin said carefully. A hacker, quiet, off-grid, used to work for one of the sister labels. Got fired for leaking demo tracks, but he's smarter than he lets on. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. You trust him? I trust he hates the company enough to help us. They exchanged a look, not of friendship, not even of alliance, something colder, fused by grief and necessity. A few hours later, they stood in a grimy basement studio reeking of cigarettes and spilled soda. LED strips lined the ceiling like veins. The hacker, a wiry guy with buzzed hair and a lip piercing, popped his gum and nodded once when Jimin held out the drive. Been waiting for this, he said. You knew, Jungkook asked sharply. I didn't know, the hacker said, sliding into his chair and plugging in the drive. But I figured someone eventually would show up with a ghost in their pocket. The screen flickered, then opened. Encrypted files, dozens. The hacker whistled low. Holy hell, this is biometric data. Of who? Jimin asked, moving closer. The hacker clicked rapidly. You, him, her, and Jesus others, dozens, all idle trainees. Blood work, psychological evaluations, EEGs during dream states. Jungkook felt like vomiting. Wait, the hacker murmured, squinting. This isn't just data, it's a replication protocol. Jimin tensed. Replication. Behavioral modeling, voice patterns, memory mapping. If I'm reading this right, they could simulate her decisions, responses, her consciousness. Jungkook staggered back. You're saying she's what? Alive in a system? More like preserved, the hacker said. Digitally. And if someone has access to this, they could project her, speak as her, maybe even control her image. No, Jimin said. She would never agree to that. She didn't, the hacker said grimly. That's why they killed her. Silence. Then a message popped onto the screen. Access DTCTD. Location COMPROMICD. The hacker's face went pale. They're watching. We need to go, Jungkook said, grabbing Jimin's wrist. But it was too late. A loud crack shattered the window, a warning shot. Get down, Jimin screamed. Jungkook tackled the hacker to the floor as another bullet punched through the monitor. Sparks flew. We have to move, now. They escaped through the basement door into an alleyway soaked in night. Tires screeched somewhere far behind. A drone buzzed overhead. They ran. Hearts thudding, minds racing. Not away from something, but toward a war they didn't know had already begun. And she, whatever she had become, was still at the center of it all. You don't get it, do you? Jimin's voice cracked, soaked in rain and rage as they stumbled through the back alley, feet splashing through puddles, lungs gasping in rhythm with their panic. This is bigger than her death, bigger than me, bigger than us, Jungkook. Jungkook halted, spinning around. Don't talk like you're the only one affected. She meant something to me too. Then act like it. Jimin shoved him, hard, palms flat against Jungkook's chest. Stop treating this like we're going to find a bad guy and fix everything with one press conference and tears on camera. This isn't a drama. This is real. And she died begging us to stop pretending. Pretending? Pretending what, huh? Jungkook stepped forward, voice low, dangerous. That we weren't part of this system. That we didn't sell pieces of ourselves for fame. You think I wanted to forget her? You think it doesn't kill me every time I smile in front of a camera, knowing she's rotting in the dark while everyone cheers for me? Jimin's chest heaved. Their breaths fogged the cold air. A siren wailed in the distance. Neon lights blinked from a vending machine beside them, the digital girl on the screen smiling eternally, endlessly. In synthetic happiness. She was going to go public, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. What? The night she died, Jimin continued. She told me she had evidence. She said she was tired of being their puppet, tired of covering the bruises with makeup and swallowing silence with contracts. Jungkook felt the bottom of his stomach drop. You mean the abuse? Yes, Jimin nodded slowly. Not just her, others too, trainees, some as young as 15. One tried to kill herself. They buried it, paid her family to disappear. And she knew. Jungkook's voice was barely above a whisper. She documented everything. Names, videos, timelines. It's all in the files the hacker tried to decode, the ones they destroyed. Then why didn't you ever? Because I was afraid, Jimin snapped, voice raw. I loved her and I was afraid of the company, of losing everything, of being labeled a liar, a traitor, of never singing again, of being erased like she was. Jungkook looked at him then, not as the Jimin he knew on stage, the perfect performer with the porcelain smile, but the Jimin who woke up screaming some nights. The Jimin who stared at his own reflection too long after makeup removal, like he didn't recognize himself. The Jimin who loved a girl too fiercely and still let her walk alone into a war. I think they used her prototype already, Jungkook said, breaking the silence. They used her voice to lure us to that hacker, to kill the trail. Jimin's expression tightened. Then it's worse than we thought. There's more, Jungkook continued. I didn't want to believe it before, but remember that AI campaign the label launched last year, the Immortal Idols project. That was just marketing, a hologram concept for international. Jimin stopped. His lips parted, horror dawning across his face. No, he breathed, don't say it. She was their test, Jungkook said. They used her, they scanned her. Every move, every word, they harvested her soul for a machine. Jimin doubled over, a dry sob wrenching from him. They turned her into code. Jungkook crouched beside him. His hand hovered for a second, unsure, then landed on Jimin's shoulder. Not in comfort, in solidarity. She didn't die for nothing, Jungkook said. We don't let this end in silence. Jimin wiped his face, jaw setting like steel. I know who funded the project, he said. It wasn't just our label, it was a conglomerate, one that owns multiple agencies, pharmaceuticals, defense tech. They're all connected. You got proof. I still have access to the old trainee files, Jimin said. But we'll need to break into the Seoul archive vault. Their legal team keeps the original contracts in cold storage, analog, paper, impossible to erase. Then that's our next move. They both stood. Then Jimin's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. He picked up, put it on speaker. Nothing. Then static. And then, Jimin, help me. It was her voice. No scream, no glitch, just a whisper, soft and hollow like wind through dead leaves. Where are you? Jimin shouted. Who are you? But the line cut off. Jungkook stared at the screen. Either that was real or someone's playing with our heads, he said. Either way, we follow it. Midnight turned to morning as they traced the call through a disposable server bounce. The final ping led them to the outskirts of the city, an abandoned training facility from their debut era. The place had been shut down for renovations years ago, but the building still stood. Cracked glass, rusted signs, and vines creeping up concrete like nature reclaiming pain. They broke in through a side door. Inside, the smell of mold and dust hit them like a punch. Posters of idle dreams still curled on the walls, faded and brittle. They followed the trail of sound. Through rehearsal halls. Past empty dressing rooms. To the sound booth. The power was on. A single monitor blinked. Motion activated. As they stepped forward, a video began to play. Security footage. A girl, her sitting in a chair, IV in her arm, wires on her scalp. She looked up at the camera and smiled. Not a warm smile, not the one they knew. Something programmed. Something wrong. Jimin recoiled. No, he whispered, that's not her. Jungkook stared at the timestamp. The video was dated 2 months ago. She had already been declared dead for over a year. He reached for the mouse, clicked a folder labeled Convergence 001. Inside were dozens of files, each named with a trainee ID. Some with tags, inactive, some pending clone. One said, JJK live test next. Jungkook felt ice in his veins. That's me, he said. The door behind them creaked. They spun around. A figure stepped forward. Not a stranger. It was their former vocal coach. Eyes blank. Voice monotone. Subject JJK and PJM. Reintegration unauthorized. Termination protocol activated. Jimin took a step back. They brainwashed him. Jungkook didn't speak. He launched forward. The man drew a weapon. A stun rod. But Jungkook moved faster, tackling him into the wall. The rod clattered. Jimin grabbed it and turned the voltage on high. He didn't hesitate. The man convulsed as electricity snapped through him. Then silence. They stood over him, both breathing like animals in the wild. What the hell is happening to our world? Jimin whispered. Jungkook looked at the files. This isn't our world anymore. They downloaded what they could. Lit the rest on fire. Smoke filled the hall as they ran. And somewhere in the building, in a locked room full of servers. Her voice whispered again, behind a wall of code. Jimin, Jungkook, they're not done with you. You can't just walk in there like this, Jimin said, grabbing Jungkook's arm before they stepped into the lobby of the company headquarters. We're already past the point of return, Jungkook muttered, pulling his hood lower. If they know we found the footage, then it doesn't matter whether we knock politely or burn the building down. They'll come for us either way. Jimin scanned the front desk. The security guards were new. Trained, blank expressions, earpieces too discreet to be amateur. Not the type who handed out visitor badges. The type who knew how to make someone disappear in a stairwell and clean the blood before the next trainee arrived. You said the original contracts are in the legal archive vault, Jungkook whispered. Where? Sublevel 3, Jimin replied. Biometric lock, 2 guards minimum. But I used to sneak down there when I was still a rookie. There's a maintenance shaft that cuts around the security grid. Jungkook turned to him, eyes sharp. You really memorized every corner of this place, didn't you? Jimin didn't smile. It's what you do when you don't feel safe anywhere. They slipped through a side corridor, past rehearsal studios filled with echoes of laughter from another life. Posters of smiling idols lined the walls, their eyes hollow now. Walking through the building felt like walking through a mausoleum made of glitter. Jungkook remembered how it used to feel, stepping into the lobby at 19, fresh from debut, full of hope. Back then, he thought the pain was part of the price, that the exhaustion, the isolation, the paranoia were the tax you paid for stardom. He never imagined the cost included her life. In the shaft, they crawled through darkness, metal creaking under their weight. At one point, Jimin's voice cut through the silence. There was a night, he said, barely above a breath. 3 months before she died, she told me she wanted out. Jungkook didn't respond. She said she wanted to run, leave the country, change her name, start somewhere where no one called her a product. And you didn't go with her, Jungkook asked coldly. Jimin was silent for a long time. I told her I couldn't, he finally said. I was afraid of being forgotten. The words landed like a slap. They dropped down into the archive corridor minutes later. The hallway was still, too still. Every sound felt amplified, every breath, every step, the buzz of fluorescent lights above. The vault door loomed at the end. Biometric pad glowing red. Jimin stepped forward, pressed his hand to the panel. A second passed. Then another. Then a soft beep. Access granted. Jungkook stared. They didn't revoke your clearance. Jimin's face twisted. Guess part of me still belongs to them. Inside the vault, rows of locked drawers stretched out like morgue slabs, each one labeled with names, ID numbers, debut dates. Jungkook found hers within minutes. He opened the drawer slowly. There it was. Her contract. Thick, yellowing pages stapled together. He picked it up, hands trembling, and began flipping through. The clauses were monstrous. Consent to medical testing, mandatory psychological reconditioning, intellectual property ownership extended to likeness, voice, behavior, and neural patterns. Jimin leaned over his shoulder. There, he said, pointing to a subclause. In the event of death, all proprietary likeness remains the exclusive property of the company and may be replicated under Project Mnemosiny for indefinite promotional usage. Jungkook slammed the drawer shut. They planned this. They never saw her as a person, Jimin whispered, just an asset. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Footsteps echoed from the hallway outside. Jungkook grabbed the contract. They're here. They ran. Back through the corridor, retracing their path to the shaft. But the moment they turned the corner, a figure stepped into their path. Tall. Black suit. Eyes like obsidian. You weren't supposed to see that, the man said. Get out of our way, Jungkook growled. But the man smiled. You don't understand, he said. You think this is about her, about some lost girl who rebelled against the system, but she was the system. She was the key. What are you talking about? Jimin demanded. She was the first successful integration, the man continued. Neural mapping complete, behavioral replication seamless. She was the breakthrough. And now, thanks to your little expedition, we can accelerate phase 2. You're insane, Jungkook spat. But the man only nodded, once toward the wall behind them. It lit up. A screen. Footage began to play. A stage. Bright lights. A girl standing center, singing. Her. Perfect, alive, smiling. Jimin's knees buckled. No. The man continued, voice flat. You thought she died, but her death was just the upload. Now she belongs to everyone, forever. Jungkook snapped. He lunged. The man caught his punch midair, twisted his arm, and slammed him into the wall. Pain exploded in Jungkook's shoulder. Do not touch him, Jimin roared, grabbing a fire extinguisher from the wall and swinging it hard. It hit. The man stumbled. Jungkook tore free, grabbing the contract and dragging Jimin into the stairwell. They ran again. Floor after floor, alarms beginning to wail behind them. Where do we go now? Jimin gasped. Jungkook didn't answer until they burst out into the street. The press, he said. We give them the contract, we go public. They'll never believe us. They won't have a choice. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. This wasn't just a cover-up. It was a machine, a corporation that could rewrite reality, that could use her face, her voice, her memories, and make the world thank them for it. The fight wasn't just for justice anymore. It was for truth, for memory, for the soul of the girl they loved. And neither of them was ready to let her be turned into a ghost for profit. Not without a war. You do realize they'll spin it, Jimin muttered, his voice dry and bitter as he leaned against the cracked window of the motel room. They'll call us delusional, conspiracy theorists, drugged, mentally unstable. Everything they always say when idols stop smiling the way they want us to. Jungkook didn't respond. He was hunched over the table, eyes bloodshot from staring too long at the contract, as if sheer focus could peel back a secret clause he missed. The pages had grown limp from his grip, corners stained with sweat and guilt. They have lawyers, Jungkook, Jimin continued, pushing away from the glass. They have PR teams with budgets bigger than our yearly income. They have fan bases that would swallow cyanide before believing we're not who they're told we are. Jungkook raised his head, slow and deliberate. Then we give them something they can't ignore. Jimin scoffed. What, a press conference? No, Jungkook said, a performance. Jimin stared at him. You want to perform, after all this? Jungkook looked at him, not with exhaustion, but with something colder, clearer, like someone who'd already decided he had nothing left to lose. You said it yourself. This isn't just a story. It's about control, narrative, and no one listens until there's a stage, so we give them a stage. We hijack the live broadcast next week. You're out of your mind. Probably. You think they'll let us anywhere near that stage? They will, Jungkook said, voice hardening, because we'll tell them we're coming back. Jimin's breath hitched. The anniversary performance, global broadcast, every major label, every A-lister idol watching, millions of eyes. They'll have us under surveillance the moment we step into the building, Jimin whispered. Good, Jungkook replied. That means they'll be watching when we expose them. It took 3 days to plan it. 3 days of paranoia, of burner phones and public Wi-Fi cafes, of ducking under hoods and slipping through alleys. 3 days to track down the hacker again, wounded, limping, but alive and bitter enough to help. You're suicidal, the hacker muttered as he installed the virus into their encrypted USB. This won't just get you blacklisted, you'll vanish. We're already ghosts, Jimin said quietly. The plan was simple on paper. They'd pose as surprise guests, a leaked rumor, a sudden spike of interest, and take the stage with a new tribute performance for her. That alone would pull headlines. But the real trick was backstage. The USB drive would override the live broadcast feed for exactly 90 seconds, inserting unreleased footage of the Mnemosyne program. No edits, no filters, just raw proof. The footage they retrieved from the burning facility. Test subjects, simulations, and her, the real her, sobbing during an exit interview, begging to leave, blood on her palms from ripped IV lines. It would play once. Unmistakable. Uncensored. Unforgivable. On the day of the broadcast, they dressed in silence. No stylists, no glam, just black suits tailored but unpolished, faces pale, eyes sunken. They looked like mourners, not performers. When they arrived at the arena, the handlers greeted them with forced smiles and eyes that said, "We know." But no one stopped them. Not yet. It was all optics. No one wanted to be seen dragging two global stars out of a broadcast without reason. "You look thinner," one of the execs said to Jimin in passing, sipping a vitamin water. "Yeah," Jimin replied. "I've been dying slowly." The stage manager gave them the rundown, 10 minutes between sets, cue to enter after the third chorus. The tribute would be introduced with a flashback montage, a medley of her greatest moments. They watched from the shadows as her smile lit the LED screen above the audience. She looked eternal. And yet, Jungkook's fingers curled into fists. Because he knew what they didn't see. The flicker in her smile that wasn't joy but exhaustion. The way she blinked too long between cuts, as if fighting to stay conscious. The sliver of red in the corner of her eye, blood vessels ruptured from overmedication. Then the lights dimmed. The cue came. They stepped onto the stage. The crowd erupted. A sea of phones and cheers, cries of "We miss you," and Jimin, Jungkook, crashed over them like a wave. Jungkook raised the mic. Jimin stood beside him, frozen in a war between adrenaline and dread. He spoke first. "She loved the stage," Jungkook said, voice raw through the silence that fell like a drop of glass. "But it didn't love her back." Whispers rippled through the crowd. "She gave everything," he continued. "Her body, her voice, her mind." More silence. Cameras zoomed in. She wasn't the only one. The screen flickered. Someone in the control booth had triggered the override. The footage began to play. Gasps echoed. Screams. On the screen, her strapped to a chair, trembling, voice cracking as she begged to go home. Her real voice, not synthesized, not sweet, just human. "No," someone in the crowd whispered. Jimin stepped forward, his voice louder now, defiant. "This is what they do to us. This is what they've hidden." A security officer rushed the stage. Too late. The feed had been live for 40 seconds. Another guard followed, then 3 more. Jungkook and Jimin didn't run. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder, as if daring the world to look away. The screen cut out. Black. The lights shut down. The broadcast was cut. They were dragged off stage. Shouted at. Threatened. Someone struck Jungkook in the ribs. Another tore the USB from Jimin's hand. But it didn't matter. The footage had gone live. Someone had already clipped it. Uploaded. Mirrored. It spread like fire. And for the first time in years, the silence that had smothered her name began to crack. It wasn't justice yet. It wasn't enough. But it was a beginning. And they were still standing. The smile that was never hers. The world burned louder than they expected. By morning, the footage had spread across every platform. Censored, re-uploaded, subtitled in 12 languages by fanbases who used to worship the system they now cursed. Hashtags trended globally. Let them speak, justice for her, IDOLSARHUMAN. And for the first time in years, people stopped smiling at illusions and started looking at the cost. But the silence from the company was deafening. No official statement, no apology, just a chilling blackout. Broadcast partners severed ties. Sponsors pulled out. A few brave journalists started digging into the Mnemosyne project, but most disappeared within days, stories pulled, accounts wiped, some vanishing entirely. And then Jungkook did. Gone. One morning, Jimin woke up in the motel alone. No note. No call. Just a silence so complete it felt like erasure. He searched for days, weeks. Nothing. And in that void, they twisted the story again. The news said Jungkook had a breakdown, stress, delusion. They showed clips from the stage, cropped and warped, painting him as a fallen star who couldn't cope with grief. Jimin screamed at the TV. They turned him into her. Another martyr with no mouse. He kept moving. Off-grid. Using burner phones, changing motels, still leaking evidence when he could, still fighting. But the eyes on him grew heavier, the shadows longer. And then, one night it stopped. The phone calls, the tracking, the threats. Everything went quiet. Too quiet. Until a letter came. No stamp. Just a single sheet, folded. Inside, a photograph. Jungkook, sitting on a bench, hair longer, face thinner, but alive. On the back, in messy handwriting. They're building something worse. It wasn't about her. It was about what she unlocked. Don't come find me. If they see us together, they'll bury us both. But keep fighting, you promised her. Jimin held the letter for a long time. Outside the window, rain fell the same way it had that night in the hospital. Cold, endless. He thought of her. Not the smile they manufactured. The real one. Soft, tired, brave. He remembered her last words, whispered through cracked lips. They want to own everything we are. Don't let them. Don't forget me. He never would. Weeks later, during a sold-out charity event, the crowd gasped as the screens flickered. Then, without warning, her face appeared. Not the digital version. The real her. Unedited. Smiling shyly in a video diary clip she once recorded on Jungkook's phone. "Hi," she said, laughing awkwardly. "If you're seeing this, then maybe I actually did it. Maybe I finally told the truth." Silence fell like a curtain. "I loved this dream," she continued, "but not what it became. If you're still out there, Jimin, Jungkook, don't let them erase what matters. Don't let the world forget we were real." The crowd stood frozen. Some cried. Some fell to their knees. And somewhere in the control room, a hidden file played for 91 seconds before self-deleting forever. No one could trace the source. But Jimin knew. He stood in the back row, wearing a plain black mask, heart thudding like it had a reason again. They hadn't won. But they'd survived. And her voice, her truth, was louder than all their lies. For the first time in years, Jimin smiled. Not the practiced kind. Not the kind that sold albums or silenced pain. But the kind that remembered. The kind that meant she still lived. In every word. Every fight. Every breath he still dared to take. And that smile was entirely his. And hers.